I'd replaced our old, rusted-out mailbox with something special, something personal, something my 8-year-old son had picked out himself while we were browsing online together. An old-fashioned, black and gold mailbox shaped like a vintage train engine. It had character. The flag was even a little smokestack that went up when mail arrived. He loved it. And honestly, so did I. It wasn't bright neon. It wasn't garish or huge. It met all the USPS regulations: proper height, proper clearance from the curb, reflective numbers in clear font. I even double-checked on the official USPS website just to make sure. It was quirky, sure, but it was legal. That didn't matter to Karen. Karen, the HOA president, unofficial neighborhood watchdog, and self-proclaimed guardian of aesthetic integrity. She lived 4 houses down, always wore pressed slacks, white sneakers, and sunglasses big enough to double as welding goggles. She didn't walk so much as patrol. She spotted the mailbox the day after we installed it. I was raking leaves when she strutted by with her clipboard. She stopped, tilted her head, pulled her sunglasses down her nose to get a better look, and pursed her lips like she'd just swallowed vinegar. "That mailbox," she began, staring at it like it had personally offended her, "violates the aesthetic harmony clause of the HOA agreement." I blinked. The what? The aesthetic harmony clause. Section 5.4. She repeated like she was reciting sacred scripture. "It's too whimsical. This neighborhood has a standard. You can't just install novelty objects in plain view." I chuckled politely. "Karen, it's a mailbox, and it's USPS approved." She didn't smile. "You'll be hearing from me," she said, scribbling something on her clipboard, and then she walked off like she'd just served me a subpoena. I told my wife about it that night. We laughed it off. "She'll get over it," I said. "There's no way she can do anything about a legal mailbox." But I was wrong, because the very next morning, something was off. No mail. Nothing in the box. Not a flyer, not a bill, not even junk. I figured maybe the postal carrier skipped our house by mistake. It happens. But then it happened again the next day. And the next. 3 days with no mail. That's when I started to feel that itch. The one that says something isn't right. The kind that doesn't just pass with time. So I did what any suspicious homeowner would do. I checked the security camera feed. We had a Ring camera installed above our garage. It caught everything that passed the driveway and the front of the yard. I scrolled through the footage from the past 3 days, expecting to see the mail truck drive by without stopping. But instead, I saw her, Karen, who'd pulled over a short blonde bob, massive sunglasses covering half her face, hoodie zipped all the way up like she was auditioning for a neighborhood heist movie. She crept across our lawn like she was on some covert mission. And then, without a moment of hesitation, she opened the mailbox. Opened it. She looked inside, pulled out a handful of letters, stuffed them into a plastic grocery bag, and walked off like it was a totally normal part of her day. My jaw dropped. I rewound it, watched it again, and again. Day 2, same thing. She comes back. Same outfit, same route. Opens the mailbox, grabs the mail, walks off like she's collecting seashells. Day 3, this time. She doesn't even bother with the disguise. Sunglasses and cardigan. Walks right up, takes the mail, and leaves. I sat there, watching the screen in stunned silence. She wasn't bluffing. She wasn't complaining to the HOA. She wasn't just annoyed. She was stealing my mail. A felony. It didn't matter why she was doing it, whether she thought it was justified or not. It was illegal. And not just local police illegal. This was federal-level criminal behavior. I printed the screenshots. I saved the video clips. I even made a montage with timestamps, just in case. And then I did what Karen never expected me to do. I reported her. First, I filed a complaint with our local police department. They took the report, noted it down, and said I'd hear back. But I didn't stop there. I went straight to the U.S. Postal Inspection Service. Because tampering with, withholding, or stealing mail is a direct violation of 18 U.S. Code Section 1708. That's a federal crime punishable by up to 5 years in prison and serious fines. I submitted the footage, the stills, and the dates she accessed the mailbox without permission. They called me within 48 hours. The inspector who showed up looked like he walked off a courtroom TV show. Neat black suit, badge on his hip, quiet but firm demeanor. He introduced himself, then asked if he could see the footage firsthand. I played it for him. He watched it all, carefully. No interruptions. Then he leaned back and said, "This isn't just theft. This is premeditated mail obstruction. And based on how she's dressed, she knew what she was doing was wrong." He asked if I had any recent mail that hadn't arrived. I told him we'd been missing a few bills, an Amazon return label, and my son's birthday card from my sister in Oregon. "That's more than enough," he said, pulling out a notepad. "We'll be opening a federal case. And depending on how far this goes, she could be facing felony charges." I was stunned and a little thrilled, because for once, someone was actually holding her accountable. Karen had always been the queen of intimidation, the fine sender, the chalk police, the gatekeeper of grass length and Christmas light removal dates. But now she was on camera. She was the one who crossed the line, and she had no idea what was coming. I didn't tell anyone at first, not even my neighbors. I wanted to let the case play out, but you could feel something shift in the neighborhood over the next week. Karen didn't wave anymore. She walked faster past our house. She didn't have her clipboard. It was like she knew the walls were closing in. Then, one morning, I got the confirmation email. Federal court date scheduled. United States versus Karen Wilkins. The U.S. government was officially pressing charges. And it all started with one whimsical, little train mailbox my son picked out for fun. "Karen, are you stealing my mail?" I said it out loud, flat, with zero emotion, because the security footage I'd just watched confirmed what I already knew. I wanted to give her a chance to deny it. Maybe make up some ridiculous excuse about picking up a flyer that blew off the porch. But nope, she didn't even blink. She squared her shoulders, tilted her chin like she was standing trial for something she was proud of, and with a tone that could ice boiling water said, "I'm protecting the community." My eyebrows shot up. Protecting the what? Karen didn't budge. In one hand, she clutched her clipboard like it was a royal decree. In the other, she waved a piece of paper, probably some outdated HOA policy printout she thought gave her power over the U.S. Constitution. "That mailbox is an eyesore," she said, her voice firm, like she was delivering a sermon on neighborhood purity. "The HOA guidelines clearly state that mailboxes must be painted in neutral tones, tan gray, forest green, or brick red. Yours is themed." I looked at my mailbox, a cute, black and gold vintage train engine my son and I installed together one Saturday morning. Regulation size, reflective numbers, even had a weather-resistant coating. "Karen," I said slowly, "you opened my mailbox, and you took letters. That's theft." She scoffed like I had just accused her of robbing a bank. "It's not theft," she snapped. "It's enforcement. I warned you. You ignored me. I had no choice but to confiscate your mail until the offending item," she pointed at the mailbox like it was a crime scene, "was removed." I stared at her, stunned. "You're telling me you think the HOA gives you the right to steal federal mail?" Karen rolled her eyes. "It's not stealing. I didn't open anything. You touched it," I said. "You took it." She gave me the most smug, superior smile I've ever seen in my life. "The HOA trumps personal decisions. You'll thank me when the property value doesn't drop." That was it. The moment I realized something chilling. She had no clue what she was messing with. None. She thought she was playing neighborhood sheriff, that she could march around like Judge Judy and enforce rules that didn't even exist. I turned around without saying another word, walked into the house, and calmly closed the door behind me. Inside, I sat down at the kitchen table, pulled out my phone, and did what every sane person should do when their rights are being trampled. I reported her. First, I called the local police. Not emergency, just a non-emergency number. I explained what happened. The officer on the line took it seriously. "You have footage?" he asked. "Clear as day," I replied. 3 days in a row." "All right," he said. "That's actually bigger than us. You need to call the U.S. Postal Inspection Service." He gave me the number. See, most people don't realize this. But mailboxes are federal property. Once that red flag is up or the mail is delivered, that little box becomes a protected zone under 18 U.S. Code Section 1708. Interfering with it? Stealing mail? Even just pulling something out without permission? That's a felony. I called the postal inspectors that same hour. Spoke with a polite but serious agent who asked for my name, my address, and a basic timeline of events. Do you have video evidence? I have footage from 3 separate days showing the same person, my HOA president, walking onto my lawn and removing mail directly from the box. A short pause. Can you upload it to this secure link I'm about to send you? Done, I said. I didn't sleep well that night. Not because I was afraid, but because I couldn't believe the sheer arrogance of it. Karen truly believed her role as HOA president gave her power to override federal law. That a guideline about mailbox color somehow justified stealing wedding invitations, bills, my son's birthday card. She didn't cross a line. She pole vaulted over it. The next morning, around 10 a.m., I got a call from a man named Inspector Ramos. U.S. Postal Inspector. Federal badge. He was already in the area and asked if he could stop by to verify the situation in person. 15 minutes later, he pulled into my driveway in a dark blue sedan with government plates. He stepped out, neatly dressed in a blazer, clipboard in hand, sunglasses on, and a look that said he meant business. I led him to the kitchen, offered him coffee, which he declined, and pulled up the footage on my laptop. He watched all 3 clips. Not once did he interrupt. He took notes silently, watched Karen approach the box, open it, take mail, and walk away like she was performing a routine chore. After the final clip, he looked up. "This is a textbook violation," he said, "and I've seen a lot." He explained that mail theft is a serious crime. Even if someone doesn't open the envelope, just taking it is enough to land them in deep trouble. Add on the fact that this was done repeatedly, with intent, and under the guise of some fake authority. "We'll be opening a case," he said. "You may be contacted to provide a formal statement, possibly testify. This is going to court." I nodded. Good. She needs to understand she's not above the law. Later that day, I received a formal confirmation email. "Your case has been accepted and is now under active investigation. Reference case ID #USPS MT 4773. I printed it out and taped it to the inside of our cabinet, next to the warranty for the mailbox. My wife thought it was overkill. I thought it was poetic. Karen didn't know yet. She had no idea the federal government had her name on file, that a case was building, that 3 neighbors had already joined mine with statements of their own, each claiming she'd removed mail from their boxes too, medication samples, tax documents, a stimulus check. The woman wasn't just nosy, she was dangerous. Over the next week, I didn't confront her again. I didn't even wave when I saw her walking that same route, clipboard tucked under one arm like a scepter. But she must have felt something change, because the day after Inspector Ramos visited, Karen didn't stop in front of our house. She paused from a distance, looked at the mailbox, looked at the camera, and kept walking. For the first time in years, she looked small. I wasn't sure if she knew, if someone tipped her off, or if she just sensed it, like a predator realizing the hunter had become the hunted. Either way, I didn't need to say a word. The law was already speaking for me. And this time, even Karen couldn't talk her way out of it. He asked if I had video footage, dates, and witness statements. I nodded and pulled out the folder I had put together the night before. It was organized, labeled, and color-coded. 2 different camera angles, 3 separate days, high-definition footage. I handed him a USB drive with everything loaded. Ramos, the federal postal inspector, inserted it into his tablet and hit play. He didn't say a word, just sat there, expression calm but unreadable, eyes fixed to the screen as he watched Karen walk onto my property like she owned it. In the first clip, she wore her usual windbreaker and that oversized sun visor, clipboard under one arm. She walked straight up to my mailbox, looked around once, opened it, reached in, and pulled everything out like it was her morning routine. She didn't hesitate. She stuffed the mail into a plastic grocery bag and casually walked off. I glanced at Ramos. He kept watching. The second clip was more of the same. Different day, different hoodie, but same routine. She opened the mailbox, this time glancing over her shoulder. She pulled out a few envelopes and stuffed them into her purse. As she turned, she muttered under her breath, "They'll thank me later." The porch cam caught it clear as day. On the third day, she didn't even pretend to hide. No hoodie, no gloves. She strutted across the lawn like she had an official badge, took the mail again, and didn't even glance at the camera. Ramos rewound the third video, watched her movements, paused the moment she muttered to herself. Then he leaned back and said, "This is serious. She doesn't understand how deep she's in." He pulled out a notebook and jotted down timestamps. I handed him the written statements two neighbors had given me the day before, Mr. Kumar from 2 houses down, and the Wilsons from the cul-de-sac. The Wilsons said Karen had once removed a wedding invitation from their mailbox and left a note saying, "This doesn't reflect the standards of our community." Mr. Kumar found his medication package ripped open in his bushes, soggy from the sprinklers. Ramos read silently, lips tightening. "She's not just policing aesthetics," he said. "She's interfering with federal mail. And this shows a pattern. It's not one impulsive act. It's behavior. Calculated. Repeated." I asked him what that meant exactly. What came next? He looked up. "It means she's about to be investigated by the federal government." The weight of those words hit me in a strange way. I knew what she'd done was wrong, even illegal, but hearing a federal officer confirm it out loud felt satisfying. Like someone finally recognized that her bullying wasn't just obnoxious. It was dangerous. He told me they would take the footage and the statements and open an official case. If the U.S. attorney accepted it, Karen could be charged under 18 U.S. Code Section 1708, mail theft, a federal felony. That could mean fines, probation, even prison. I asked if I'd have to testify. "Maybe," he said. "Depends on how far this goes. But if she doesn't admit guilt, we'll need you. And probably your neighbors too." I nodded. I'd testify in a heartbeat. For 3 days, I didn't tell anyone, not even my wife. I just let it all sit and breathe, waiting to see what happened next. But news like this doesn't stay quiet for long. By Friday, something in the neighborhood shifted. People who'd never made eye contact before suddenly waved when I passed. A woman from across the street left a note on our porch that said, "We heard. Thank you." There were smiley faces drawn on it in pink marker. At the grocery store that weekend, Mr. Lewis from 2 blocks over pulled me aside. "She did the same to me," he whispered. "I never had proof, but she opened my box last fall. I saw her. Thought no one would believe me." I gave him Ramos's number. By Monday, 3 more neighbors had filed statements. The feds didn't waste time. That Wednesday morning, a plain blue government vehicle pulled up to Karen's driveway. Ramos stepped out, followed by a second agent. They weren't wearing uniforms, but their posture said everything. They were here on business. I watched from behind my blinds. Karen answered the door, wearing a house robe and her hair in curlers. She looked confused at first, then defensive. Her voice got louder as she waved her arms. I couldn't hear the words, but I could see the moment Ramos handed her the envelope. "Federal notice of investigation." She stopped cold. Her face fell. Her arms dropped. She looked down at the letter, then back up at Ramos, who said something short and quiet before turning to walk back to the car. Karen stood on her porch for a full minute after they left, staring at the paper like it was written in fire. That same afternoon, she sent an email to the HOA board announcing her temporary leave for personal reasons. The comments started pouring in. A neighbor named Darlene replied with, "Blessings to you in this difficult time." Someone else posted a GIF of a train engine with the words "Male Justice" underneath. It had begun. The next day, a notice was posted to the HOA bulletin board announcing an emergency meeting. Karen didn't attend. Instead, one by one, the residents stood up and shared stories. Real ones. Stories we'd been too scared to tell before. How she fined someone for planting sunflowers. How she warned a mother that her wind chimes might attract complaints. How she left handwritten threats on people's porches when they parked slightly over the sidewalk. They all came out. No one shouted. No one argued. It was quiet, honest, almost like therapy. For the first time in years, the neighborhood felt human again. Ramos called me on Friday. Your footage and testimony have been officially submitted. The U.S. Attorney's Office is moving forward with charges. She'll be served within a few weeks. He thanked me for documenting everything. Said most people don't bother. I thanked him for showing up. Karen didn't leave her house for days. Her pristine lawn started to brown a little. No clipboard. No morning patrols. No passive-aggressive notes on doorsteps. Someone posted a photo of her porch cam footage in the Facebook group. Karen standing behind her blinds, watching Ramos walk up her steps. The caption read, "When the HOA meets the USPS." It got over 100 likes in 2 hours. Every day after that, I walked out to my mailbox, opened the little engine-shaped door, and pulled out my mail with a smile. Electric bills, coupons, birthday cards. Even the junk mail felt like victory, because now everyone knew. This wasn't just a neighborhood story anymore. It was a federal one. Karen strutted into that courtroom like she was walking into a Sunday brunch. She wore a crisp navy blazer, her signature oversized sunglasses resting on her head like a crown, and clutched a color-coded folder packed with printed-out HOA bylaws like she was about to deliver a TED Talk on neighborhood supremacy. Her expression was smug, almost bored, as if the entire proceeding was just a formality and she'd be walking out with an apology and a thank you bouquet. But this wasn't a neighborhood meeting. This was federal court. The room itself was sobering. Dark wooden panels, a U.S. flag in the corner, and a judge's bench that towered over everything. Even before the judge entered, Karen looked a little smaller. Still, when her name was called, she stood tall and confidently marched to the defendant's table like this was a performance she had rehearsed 100 times. She opened her folder dramatically and began organizing her pages like she was prepping for a presentation. One tab labeled HOA Mailbox Regulations was in bold, highlighted in yellow. Another read Community Aesthetics Policy. It was almost laughable. When the judge finally entered, everyone stood, and the room fell into silence. Judge Hollingsworth was a tall, silver-haired man known for his no-nonsense demeanor. He took his seat, adjusted his glasses, and peered down at the file in front of him. "This is United States versus Karen Wilkins," he said. "Ms. Wilkins, you are being charged under Title 18, Section 1708 of the United States Code, unlawful possession and removal of mail from a mailbox. Do you understand the charges against you?" Karen stood. "Your Honor, with all due respect, I believe this is a misunderstanding. I'm the president of our homeowners association, and I was simply enforcing our neighborhood rules." The judge blinked. Karen opened her folder and began flipping through it quickly. "Here, Your Honor. Page 3, subsection C of our community's mailbox policy clearly states that all mailboxes must conform to earth tones and standard designs approved by the board. The homeowner in question installed a mailbox that was non-compliant. Bright colors, decorative features, completely disruptive to neighborhood consistency. I was simply acting in the interest of the community." There was a long pause. The judge leaned forward, laced his fingers together, and said, "Ms. Wilkins, are you aware that removing, withholding, or tampering with another person's mail is a federal offense punishable by up to 5 years in prison?" Her eyes flickered. For the first time, that smug look faltered. She swallowed hard. "But the mailbox didn't match the neighborhood. You don't steal mail." The judge cut her off calmly. "You file a formal complaint with the HOA. You do not open a federal mailbox, remove its contents, and keep them. That is not your job, and that is not within your authority." Karen's voice wavered. I thought I had the right to do what was necessary to maintain order. I was trying to protect property values." "You're not law enforcement, Ms. Wilkins," the judge replied, his tone firm but measured. "And HOA regulations, however detailed, do not supersede federal law." Karen looked around the courtroom like someone had just pulled the rug out from under her. Her lips parted, but no words came out. Her fingers began fumbling with the edge of her folder, flipping pages she no longer seemed able to read. The prosecutor stood and calmly presented the video evidence. 3 clips were shown. each showing Karen trespassing onto private property, opening the mailbox, and taking the contents. In one, her voice was clear as day. "They'll thank me later." The courtroom was silent. Next came the witness statements. My own, the Wilsons, Mr. Kumar's, even a printed letter from the postal inspector, detailing Karen's consistent and willful disregard for federal mail laws. Karen began to shrink, her arms folded tightly across her chest. She leaned in toward her folder, as if hoping the pages might shield her from what was happening. Her foot tapped nervously beneath the table. When the prosecution finished, the judge looked directly at her. "You knew it was not your property. You took it anyway. You had multiple chances to stop. You did not. That is not ignorance. That is intent." Karen opened her mouth, but no sound came out. Her lips closed again. The judge continued, "You're not being charged for poor judgment. You're being charged for a felony, one that has consequences, real ones." He picked up the sentencing document, signed it with a quiet scratch of his pen, and read aloud the judgment. For the charge of mail theft under 18 U.S. Code Section 1708, this court orders a fine of $5,000, 2 years of probation under federal supervision, and 200 hours of mandatory community service to be served over the next calendar year. Furthermore, you are restricted from holding any leadership position in a registered homeowners association during the probationary period. Karen froze. She didn't speak. She didn't move. Her face went pale, the color draining slowly, like water slipping through a crack in porcelain. Her hands trembled slightly as she tried to reorganize her now useless folder. A few pages slipped out and fluttered to the ground. She didn't pick them up. As the judge dismissed the court, people began to file out quietly, but I stayed seated for just a moment longer, watching her. Karen sat there alone now, eyes wide, blinking hard like the weight of what just happened hadn't quite settled in. And then it did. She reached for her purse, stood slowly, and turned toward the exit, shoulders hunched, steps smaller than usual. No swagger, no clipboard, just silence. Outside the courtroom, I ran into Ramos, the postal inspector. "She got off light," I said. He gave a small nod. "First offense." But the point was made. She'll never touch another mailbox again. She won't be HOA president anymore either. "Good," he said. "Neighborhoods aren't kingdoms." When I got home, I opened my mailbox. A single letter sat inside, a utility bill. Nothing special, but I held it like it was gold, because it was mine, untouched, safe. Karen learned the hard way that some rules can't be bent, and some systems aren't meant to be played with. She thought the HOA gave her power, but the law reminded her that power has limits, and crossing them carries a price. And from that day forward, no one in our neighborhood ever tried to tell me what color my mailbox could be, because they knew exactly what happened to the last person who did. The HOA board held an emergency meeting the very same week Karen was convicted. No ceremony, no debate, just a packed room of fed-up homeowners, a unanimous vote, and the loud scraping sound of her nameplate being unscrewed from the clubhouse wall. The very same nameplate she'd polished every Sunday like it was a Nobel Prize. Gone. In under 5 minutes. Her official HOA email? Deleted. The same inbox she once used to send out all caps, violation notice messages, and blurry surveillance photos of people's flower beds. Shut down, rerouted, and replaced with a new contact. HOA at communityfair.org. It even came with a smiley face in the signature line. For the first time in years, the neighborhood exhaled. Like a long, tight breath had finally been released. The next morning, something incredible happened. Without Karen patrolling like a hall monitor on steroids, people started living again. You could see it in the little things. Kids played hopscotch on the sidewalk without nervous glances over their shoulders. One neighbor set up a lemonade stand, complete with a colorful sign and glittery balloons. Under Karen, that would have triggered a fine for visual clutter. Now, people were smiling and handing out extra quarters for the fun of it. Someone organized a weekend block party. No permission slip, no noise permit, no fear. Just folding chairs, slow-cooked brisket, and laughter spilling out onto the street like it had been waiting years to be heard again. And right there in the middle of it all stood my mailbox, still painted in bright red and bold yellow, shaped like a miniature train engine. No longer non-compliant, no longer a crime against aesthetics. It had become something else entirely, a kind of symbol, a tiny rebellion that won. I caught more than a few people snapping photos of it. And then one afternoon, my son handed me a crayon drawing. It was of the mailbox, but with sunglasses on and a bright blue cape fluttering in the wind. Above it, in chunky comic book letters, he'd written, "The mailbox that defeated Karen." We laughed so hard we cried. I put that drawing on the fridge. It stayed there for weeks. As for Karen, well, she didn't show her face much after the conviction. Her usual morning walks, clipboard tucked under arm, snapping pictures of lawn gnomes and measuring fence heights, ceased entirely. Her blinds stayed drawn. Her prized garden dried up. The once perfectly edged grass went untrimmed. The only sign of life was the "for sale" sign that appeared in her yard about 3 months later. It was one of those discreet, no fanfare listings, like she wanted to disappear quietly. Rumor spread fast. One neighbor said she was moving to a retirement community an hour away. Another claimed she picked a condo in a city with no HOA at all. I smiled when I heard that. Maybe she realized she wasn't built for rules she couldn't control. Maybe she finally met a boundary she couldn't bend. Either way, it was the end of an era, and no one mourned it. Life moved on, better than before. The new HOA board, made up of actual neighbors who wanted the community to thrive, not control it, voted to revise several outdated regulations. Decorative mailboxes, now allowed. Flags, porch plants, yard swings, approved and encouraged. The focus shifted from punishment to pride, and it showed. Lawns looked happier. People looked lighter. Conversations happened on porches again, the kind where folks leaned in and stayed a while, not just waved from a distance. Every time I walked to the curb and opened that mailbox, I smiled. Not just because I could finally receive mail in peace, not just because I knew no one would dare touch it again, but because of what it represented. It was more than a mailbox now. It was a story, a symbol of standing up to the petty, the controlling, the bullies who hide behind clipboards and outdated rulebooks. A reminder that justice, real justice, doesn't always roar in with sirens and fanfare. Sometimes it shows up in a plain sedan with a badge in one pocket and a camera file in the other. Sometimes it walks quietly up to a porch and knocks with calm authority. Sometimes it wears a suit, stands behind a podium, and sentences a self-declared queen of the HOA to 200 hours of community service. And sometimes, justice wears sunglasses and drives a mail truck. It wasn't just about Karen anymore. It was about every person who had ever been intimidated by someone in fake authority. Every neighbor who was scared to paint their door, hang a wreath, or receive a birthday card without someone peering over the hedge and whispering violation. And that mailbox, it's still out there, still chugging along, still bright red with its yellow smokestack. Kids love it. It's even got a little bell that jingles when you open it. Sometimes I find neighborhood kids putting drawings or stickers inside just for fun. I leave them there for a day before taking them inside, smiling every time. One evening, as the sun dipped low and the neighborhood glowed with that warm golden hue, my wife and I sat on the porch sipping iced tea. Across the street, a group of kids rode by on bikes, waving. The Reyes family grilled kebabs in their driveway. Laughter drifted over from the block corner, where folding chairs and music speakers had become permanent fixtures. And just then, I heard the mail truck. It rolled up slowly, tires crunching over gravel. The mail carrier, a young woman named Lexi, who started shortly after all this drama ended, gave me a quick wave and placed a package gently into the box. She tapped the flag, winked, and said, "Still my favorite stop." I grinned, still standing. As she pulled away, I walked to the curb, opened a little train engine's door, and pulled out a few envelopes and a padded envelope. Bills, a birthday card, a package of novelty socks I'd forgotten I ordered. Nothing world-changing, but everything felt different, because now every letter came with a reminder that standing your ground matters, that doing things the right way, even when it's hard, means something, that people like Karen may scream the loudest, But they don't get the final word. Not when the truth is louder. Not when the law is stronger. And not when an entire neighborhood finally decides they've had enough. Sometimes, justice doesn't ring the doorbell or write a stern letter. Sometimes it's hand-delivered by the federal government, straight to the mailbox. And every time I open it, I remember the little engine that could and did